I'm a broken record with our clients to say, you got to have awareness throughout the day and use these techniques. Just keep using them, right? And this is what creates a new baseline. And as you and I talked about, the self-awareness piece, and you always talk about this in Strategic Coach. I mean, half the exercises we're doing are just creating awareness of what our behaviors, our limitations, right, are. And to have that self-awareness to then know we can make different choices. And, we just talked about the Carl Jung quote. I think it goes, until you make the unconscious conscious, it runs our life and we call it fate. But when we become aware of our thoughts, we're like, oh, that's not real. I've just been conditioned to think that, right? From my childhood or from 2 weeks ago. And when we're like, okay, I can witness that thought without being attached to it. Oh, and now I actually have the power to choose different thoughts, right? That actually serve me. And when we start to see that, and we start to see our clients have these choice points where they'll actually pause, right? Take that couple seconds, and instead of reacting, right? Going back to past behaviors and baselines, and then they know they have space to create different decisions and they have the power to do it, it changes their lives.
So what I'm hearing you say is that, like the famous Star Wars line, Luke, this is your destiny. What basically is, in essence, it's this idea of these compounded stacking of thoughts that then people just go, well, this is my fate or destiny, right? And so what I'm hearing you say is actually, that doesn't have to be on autopilot. One of the things that you had said earlier, not in this episode, but in a conversation we had maybe like a year ago, we were talking about what we think we control and what we don't realize that what we don't control. And it was specifically around things that happen to us and we think that our brain is in charge, but our body is the storage unit. And that we store all things that whether we are conscious of or actually subconsciously unconscious of, I think I'm saying that right, that we aren't even aware of happening. It could be body language, it could be energy, it could be these stressors, right? I think we are aware. I think we all think that we are aware of these stressors. And so I'd love if you commented on how the body functions physiologically in terms of actually storing these things. But I think even before that, I think we hear the word stress, and I think it's sort of we hear the word stress so much that it actually stop having the impact of being you're stressed and be like, okay, people just go, okay, well, sure. It's sort of like a glib word to say. How do you know if you are stressed? So when you're walking these CEOs, these special forces, people through to be able to go, am I actually stressed? Can you walk us through in terms of I know that I'm stressed if and when I feel?
Yeah, it's a great question. With stress, I mean, there's a lot of indicators. Could be related to how you're sleeping, if you're feeling reactive, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling burnt out. I mean, obviously, our clients, blood test will indicate a number of things. If we've got sort of high cortisol, people know. Actually, they don't always know that they're stressed, right? Because they're on such automatic behavior. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is the reactivity, right? The living in the past or the future, not sleeping, gaining weight. I mean, there's a number of different things. Stanford Medical School, I mean, there's been a lot of studies, but they talk about 70 to 80% of all chronic illness and disease is caused by stress. We've even seen studies that are higher than this. And we continually see that specific stressors manifest differently in different parts of the body. And again, we're living in such a fast-paced society that we're sort of cut off from the head down. So we're not even aware of what's going in our body right? Or what's happening. And so with that, physical symptoms start to manifest.
When I think about my own journey, but then also when I think about other people that I work with, I think the shift is often sort of from the pursuit into the present. And so when you say growth minded and like high achievers and right, like we're often so conditioned and so used to striving for something and achieving something and consistently achieving, right? What we also do is consistently move the goalpost and that we have something else to strive for. And there's so much joy that we can get from the pursuit, but if that's not balanced out with everything that's already in the present and learning how to appreciate and sort of live there without the pursuit, then I think you are going to be in a space of languishing, because all you're doing is you're giving yourself a period of time where you're striving towards something, but then you hit it. And then it gives you a brief moment, but then it falls off again. And you're like, why am I not getting the satisfaction that I wanted to get from all these things that I've achieved? But it's actually not about achieving anymore. It's that you need to make a mental shift away from that and about defining your life in a much broader way, in a much broader sense around presence versus around getting somewhere or achieving something.
Let's pretend I'm an entrepreneur coming to you, and it's clear when you say, tell me about your life, right? And I spin this incredible tale, which anyone else would go. And again, one of the reasons why I launched MaxLife Podcast is that this idea of that there's a intersection between the success that everyone maybe sees externally and the life that's actually lived. And I think this is like the natural outcomes of the energy that you're driving. What are the questions that you find really helpful to help someone be able to kind of recapture that energy, like recapture that pulse, that basically that underground, like artisanal stream of the word that keeps coming to my head is gratitude. Like we're trying to re-tap back into that gratitude. What would you be asking me, or what should an entrepreneur who's listening to this, or someone who's even in that space, what should they be asking?
I mean, okay. Love the question. And I could go a million sort of different directions, because especially since you mentioned the gratitude stream. But I think the more interesting and also the broader question that anyone can ask themselves, and you're going to laugh because it's a simple question, but it's not simple to answer, is what do I want? And it's like such a simple question, but hear me out. Most people will go like, well, I want more money and I want this and I want this. And you start at a top layer and then you go, okay, and what else? And what else? And what else? And what else? Sort of like at least 5 times, because what typically tends to happen is you start at the broader outside layer. And then when you're forced to think beyond that, you're like, well, actually, all I want is like to have time with my kids and like sort of wake up happy and be healthy when I'm 70 and whatever. You deepen the layer of like what you want. Because the thing about what you want is that no matter what it is, you're usually wanting what you think that will facilitate in terms of an experience. So you usually don't want the outcome, you want a feeling that you expect the outcome to bring. So if I'm saying I want more money, it's not about the money, it's about what I think the money will facilitate, right? And that could be a feeling of security, sure. But how do I notice that? What does that mean in my everyday life, right? Does that mean I have more time with my kids? Does that mean I don't know, I can buy other things. Don't have to worry about buying groceries, whatever it is, right? But it has an impact that is felt much more than it is on that level. And so if you get curious enough about this question to move from that outer layer to what experience, what feeling am I actually trying to facilitate, you get to the core of it. And when you get to the core of it, you can also find ways of like, wait, in what ways is that already here? Like, in what ways am I actually keeping myself from, let's go with the example, spending time with my kids? Because I am so hell-bent on striving towards whatever the next income goal. And what if I don't have to do that? Actually, if I stayed at the same income goal, but I could take X amount more time with my kids instead, would that not actually make me more successful if I look at it from that measure? So it's a very simple question, but most people stop at that first layer, which is how you end up with the external goals, right? It's exactly how you end up with all I want to make more money, I want to drive this car, I want to whatever, versus the deeper layers. But you got to stay persistent with that question. And it's often with a coaching conversation that you get to have somebody mirror back and say like, here's what I heard. And what does that mean for you? What is that facilitating for you?
Because I had tied my worth as an individual
to my financial balance sheet. And when it went to a negative, not just a lower number, but when it went to a negative, I felt worthless, of no worth. And I wasn't even thinking about this adjoining balance sheet that I share in my book, What We're Worth, that I call a human life value balance sheet. And there's assets, Ben, and there's liabilities on the human life value balance sheet. Some of those assets are, like our knowledge, our experiences, a degree we may have from school, relationships. Relationships are a line item on our human life value balance sheet. And I'd forgotten all of that. I was clouded. I couldn't even think straight. I wasn't even thinking about my human life value balance sheet. Ben, our human life value balance sheet is the source and the creator of our property value in our life. That room you're in, this home office I'm in, the house that I'm in, has no value whatsoever until you or I or another human gives it value. So people are the true assets. Things are not. Human life values is the source and creator of all property value.
Can you talk about with Byron and with Garrett, what are the three most common questions that you have found so effective that if the audience listening today just took these three questions and said, if I just start asking these every day and answering them as honestly as I'm allowing myself to be, what would those three questions be that you think would have the greatest impact? Because you clearly have had a lot of journey of asking yourself questions that maybe you're honest or not honest about. My guess is today you're super honest about it because you find the benefit in there. But what are those three that if you could tell our audience today, hey, if you just start answering these three questions, this would be a great start?
You can download this worksheet from thework.com and it gives you all these questions. And the question number one is it true? Is it true? I'm not worthy. I'm not loved. Those are like some of if you peel down the layers of the onion, you get down to the core of, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel loved. Those are some of the deep rooted ones, but it could start of, I'm a failure, or I failed at that, or I'm no good at this. Is that true? Is that absolutely true? How can I know for a fact that that's true, that I'm a failure? So if we ask ourselves, if we'll pause and give ourselves time to ask ourselves those questions, and I'm glad you brought this up. Is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? And just those two questions alone to pause and ask ourselves. And then the third question is there any part of my history in my life where that wasn't true? Can I find any evidence in my life where I actually succeeded at something? And if we'll pause and slow down and get present and allow the noise to slow down, because the noise is all this, I'm not worthy, I'm a failure, and then it's just this deep rabbit hole that we go down. But if we'll start practicing slowing down and pausing and ask ourselves those questions, is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? Is there any evidence of my past where that wasn't true? We'll find that evidence. And then we can start building on that. And 99.9% of the time, it's not true. But we tell ourselves that story, and then we believe it, and all of our actions and results in our life are affected as a result of that story.
There's a word that jumped out that you wrote down, and the word was blind spots. And for whatever reason, it really jumped off because I think we all have them. No, I'm going to rephrase that. I don't think we have. I know that we actually all have them. I think that a lot of people think that they are maybe things that are bad to like have blind spots. But I think the thing that I think about with blind spots is that they're just future opportunities for us to unveil. These are like cataracts. If you want to think of an onion, layers to come back in. So what do people get wrong about blind spots?
Oh gosh, that's just a big topic, isn't it? And I agree with your introductory remarks. We all have them, And it's great to soften up around that topic and just assume we always have them and get really curious about them, not to feel bad, not to feel defensive. I do executive coaching, and even prior to doing executive coaching work, I was very curious about blind spots, and I was so surprised how many leaders I ran into that didn't seem curious about them. There were many really successful people I met in my entrepreneurial life that got really good at one or two things, generalized that to think they were good at everything. Right? Do you know this phenomenon?
Yeah. I think it also happens in marriage, by the way.
Of course it does, bidirectionally, right? And I've been interested in that in a long time. Of course, in coaching, that's a big part of the work we do, is people looking for their edges, and edges or blind spots are the opportunities for growth. So we want to get really curious about those. We can work on those things we know that we don't know, but we need help with the blind spots. We either need close friends or peers, or in some cases a coach, to help us move those out into the light so we can start working on them.
How do people understand and get clarity on their intentions?
Well, journaling is a really great way to do that. I tell all of my coaching clients journaling is compulsory, and some people say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." And I will often say, well, people can keep doing the same things over and over again and never really improve. It's the reflecting that helps you improve. And there's a reason that the football teams look at the game films afterwards. They don't have the bandwidth on the field. You have to look back later. So that journaling is a really good piece of it. In some cases, in the case of people with really good French, you can even do that in an interview format or with a spouse, kind of dig up in an interview format intentions. Chat GPT or other LLMs can be so useful. Tell it who you want it to be. Like, I want you to be my intentions coach. Start asking me questions. It's just so darned effective at that.
Thank you for listening. A big thanks to Elation Lab for the production and creative design. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep listening for more Max Life.